The desert wind rolled across the plains like a whispered memory, stirring the red dust around the quiet boots of Colt Dawson as he leaned on the rail outside the half-broken saloon, watching the sun sink like a smoldering ember behind the sandstone cliffs. Life had been a long road of cattle drives, gun smoke, and heartbreak, with nothing but the slow creak of saddle leather and the endless stretch of prairie to remind him he was still alive. And on most days he wasn't entirely convinced even of that. The townsfolk of Red Bluff said he was a ghost walking tall, sharp-jawed, hat tilted low, a man with more scars than stories he was willing to tell, a man who carried a past too heavy for the average soul to bear. But on this evening, as the dying sun painted the land in molten gold, Colt felt something strange prick his chest, something he hadn't felt in years, an echo, a presence, a memory riding on the wind like distant drums. It began with the rhythmic beat of hooves, faint at first, then stronger, like a heartbeat galloping toward him from the horizon. He squinted, straightening from the rail as a lone rider emerged from the shimmering heat, waves cloaked in desert dust, hair long and black as raven wings, sitting tall on a painted horse that moved like thunder wrapped in muscle. Then she lifted her chin, allowing the sunlight to reveal the delicate markings, painted on her cheek the sacred pattern of the white mountain Apache, and Colt felt his pulse kick hard, like a wild Mustang breaking free. She dismounted with fluid grace, boots touching the earth as gently as the landing of a hawk, and when her dark eyes met his, something ancient and electric surged between them. "Remember me, cowboy?" she said, voice smooth but carrying the strength of canyon stone. Colt swallowed hard, memories flashing the night of fire, the ambush by renegades, the terrified girl he'd shielded beneath his coat as arrows rained like screaming shadows, the child he'd lifted onto his horse and carried across miles of burning desert just so she could live to see another sunrise. "By God," Colt whispered, breath trembling. "Naira." She stepped closer, and there was no hesitation in her eyes, only purpose forged by time. "I'm the Apache girl you saved years ago," she said. "I've returned to marry you." The words struck him harder than any outlaw's bullet. Naira no longer the frightened child he remembered, but a proud warrior woman, a vision shaped by the spirit of the mountains, fierce yet elegant, bold enough to walk straight into the fading light of a man who believed he'd run out of reasons to hope. Colt's throat went dry. "I reckon you've got the wrong man," he murmured, though even he could hear the weakness in his protest. "I'm no hero, Naira. Haven't been for a long while." She shook her head slowly, her earrings chiming like tiny bells. "You saved me," she replied, "not because you were strong or fearless or perfect, but because your heart refused to abandon someone who needed you. That's the man I came for." Colt's breath wavered. "A fiancé buried on a hill that overlooked too many broken promises. I ain't got anything left to give," he said. "My world's dust. My future's empty as this town." Naira stepped even closer, so near he could feel her warmth, smell the faint, sweet scent of sage and wind in her hair. "Then let me give you mine," she said. "My tribe sent me on a vision quest. I saw your face in the fire. I saw your hands lifting me from death. I saw my future standing where you stand. Now," her voice dropped to a low whisper, trembling with truth, "you're the man my spirit chose." Colt felt his defenses crumble like brittle clay. He stared at her, at the courage in her posture, the honesty in her gaze, the quiet fire in her voice. She reached into her saddlebag and pulled out something wrapped in deer hide. When she unraveled it, the fading evening caught on a necklace, a small carved bone pendant shaped like a hawk in mid-flight. "My mother gave this to me the night you saved me," Naira said, holding it out. "She told me to give it to the man I would marry. I kept it all these years, waiting for you." Colt's breath hitched. He looked at the pendant, then at the sky, as if hoping for a sign, but the sky was silent, the desert still, the moment heavy with fate. Naira extended the necklace once more. "Take it," she said, "or tell me your heart truly doesn't remember me." Colt reached for the pendant, but not with his hand, with his soul, because in that moment, in the shimmer of dusk, he remembered everything, the way she'd clung to him as a child, whispering that she wanted to live, the way he'd promised she would, The way he'd carried that memory through every lonely night afterward, never knowing she still carried him too. His fingers brushed hers, sparking a heat that felt like lightning racing toward heaven. But before he could speak, a gunshot cracked through the air, sharp, violent, echoing across the plains. Naira jerked back, startled, instinctively reaching for the knife at her hip. Colt spun, hand flying to his holster. A group of riders thundered down the street, dust exploding behind them like a storm. 8 men, armed and riding hard, their leader with a black bandana and a scar carved down his cheek. "Dawson," the leader yelled. "We ain't done with our business, boy." Colt cursed under his breath. Faye had a cruel sense of timing. "Who are they?" Naira asked. Colt didn't take his eyes off the riders. "Trouble," he growled. "The kind that don't leave unless I'm dead." Naira stepped beside him, shoulders squared. "Then they'll have to come through me too." Colt shot her a look. "This ain't your fight." Naira's expression hardened. "You saved me once." Dust clouds into the air. The leader spat into the dirt. "You owe us, Dawson. And tonight you pay." Colt's jaw clenched. "You boys picked the wrong night." Naira slid the hawk pendant into her palm, whispering something in Apache, a prayer, a promise, a declaration of battle. The desert wind shifted, carrying the cold scent of fate, because now he wasn't facing death alone. The woman fate had brought back to him, the woman who claimed she'd come to marry him, stood ready at his side. And something in Colt Dawson finally woke up. Something fierce, something worth fighting for. As the outlaws cocked their rifles and the town braced for bloodshed, Naira leaned close, her breath warm against his ear. "When this is over," she murmured, "I'll ask again. And you won't say no." Colt drew his gun with a steady hand, eyes blazing with new fire. "Darlin'," he said, "I ain't sure I could." And then the night exploded into gunfire, destiny, and the beginning of a love story the desert itself would remember for generations.